Okay, so this is showing that on the 12th.
U.S. Attorney's Office.
Yeah, I'm trying to reach attorney Leah McEwing.
This is Leah McEwing.
McEwing, yeah, that's what I meant.
Can I let her know who's calling, please?
Well, I also emailed this to Mr. Dominy to also help him get acquainted with the case. So I hit view. And that's to show that these are the same thing. It was indeed then.
U.S. Attorney's Office.
Yeah, I'm trying to reach attorney Leah McEwing.
This is Leah McEwing.
McEwing, yeah, that's what I meant.
Can I let her know who's calling, please?
Yeah, my name's Brian Doss. It was in regards to a case she tried years ago. I wasn't a participant in either one of the things. It was somebody she prosecuted and convicted. I had a civil case with them. I was wanting to know. I've been on the Pacer account, but
You're an attorney, or you're?
Just a client. I'm using an attorney. I told him I was going to reach out to him to try to get some info. I think it was her and two other attorneys that tried that case.
Okay, so what are you needing to talk with her about? Sorry.
I needed to know if she was the main one that was working the case. I know sometimes, I guess, one attorney's like the main one. If she had any recollection of the case, possibly looking to subpoena them in the case, one of them, and just that, see if she remembered it.
And what's the case?
It had been an Elbert Walker. It was actually him, a guy named Daryl something. God, I had it here. And a Cheryl Burke. I think a Daryl Burke. I think they were both Burkes. It was a mortgage fraud, insurance fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy case.
Okay. And so you said you're looking into a new case? Is what? I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get some information.
I've got a quiet title case where Elbert Walker did a counterclaim, and it involves the property that actually the DOJ has a lien on, and that was part of that case.
Okay, let me see if she's available. Hold on, please.
Okay.
And you said you're not an attorney, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Hold on just a second.
All right. Hey, Miss Leah, I keep saying it's McEwing, right?
McEwing,
McEwing, okay. Yeah, I did my research, and then I also had a Pacer account, and I was dealing with an individual, I guess y'all prosecuted in the past, but it's 2015, 2016. I know y'all see a lot of cases.
I remember Mr. Walker.
Oh, do you? Okay. Well, I saw it was another gentleman, another guy, and then y'all were the three attorneys that prosecuted the case?
Yeah, so Harry Foster, who you saw on there, he's a lawyer who works for ATF.
Oh, okay.
And so because of the arson portion of this case, and, the fact that it was like, if you will, serial arsons, they provided an assistant, to help in the case. So he tried the case with me. Okay. And I don't know who else might be entered on the docket, honestly. But Harry and I tried the case back in 2015.
Oh, so, okay. I'm glad, because I called you first, because I seen like a Peterman the third, or...
Oh, yeah, he was the acting U.S. attorney.
But he wasn't really in the nuts and bolts of the case. Okay,
No.
You're the right one then.
Yep.
So on two fronts, because I know Elbert has probably stipulations with the verdict. Hey, you can't engage in mortgage fraud again.
Well, everybody does.
Yeah.
Well, what's he up to these days?
Okay, so he's in Fulton County right now. He was out for like 2 years with COVID. I bought that Bond Villa property in K Road. Yeah, and I bought it at a tax sale. And so I bought it. I don't know, Elbert, at this point. I bought, I think, 13 of them that year. They went for really cheap. Everybody else redeemed, and they would meet me in person with their license, and I would see that it was the person, and we would quit claim it, and that's how tax deeds in Georgia work. With Elbert, I got a lady. She was a black woman. She wasn't older. She was pre-40 years old. She sounded younger. She called me twice. She wouldn't ever give me her name. She just said she was representing Elbert Walker. I said, who are you? It was a Florida number, I think a 904 number, and yada, yada, yada. So when people redeemed from me in the past, an attorney would usually call me that they'd went and got, and he said, hey, we got this amount for you. This is how we came up with it. I have the deed ready. Can you come get the check? And so that's how it usually worked. Well, she was wanting a figure from me, and I gave her a roundabout figure. I didn't think nothing of it. It was sketchy. She kept asking stuff. She wouldn't tell me her name or nothing. And in Georgia, you have to have legal interest to the property. You have to be a lien holder, a mortgage company, or the individual themselves. And if the person died, you have to be an heir, not like an heir that's not really an heir. So I thought, that's weird. Well, then I opened my P.O. box, and I begun talking to an attorney because this one hadn't redeemed. It was getting near the year. And I said, hey, I'm not really sure the statute in Georgia was wrote really poorly. I said, over the years I've been doing this, I hadn't had many redeemed, but the attorneys always added up differently. I've dealt with 4 attorneys at this point, probably 4 or 5, and they all calculated it differently, which is strange. It ought to be uniform, and the statute ought to be written more specific. And so anyway, he said, yeah, what amount did you guys? I said, yeah, but I'm not sure. He said, yeah, I'll come up with my figure, and that's what it'll be. Well, in that time, I get a check in the mail with a quitclaim deed, and I'm guessing the amount came from the lady that spoke with me on the phone that never gave me her name. And I had a guy around that time that was an investor, and that's what threw my flag up. It wasn't initially Elbert. It was somebody trying to get me to mail this deed back to them so they could maybe alter it or whatever. I'm just paranoid at that point because, who does that? Who just sends me a check and out the blue and whatever? And so I have never met Elbert. I'm telling my attorney, where is this guy? I heard he might be in jail. So I mailed a check back to the address, 412 Baytree, which is his resident, I guess, and his wife. And they never accepted. Oddly, somebody there, his wife, accepted the sheriff's, the sheriff's service from my attorney. So I called my attorney. I said, look, I mailed it back. He said, look, I served them, whatever. If it runs out, we'll file the barment, whatever. So we did. The check, certified check, got mailed back to me. I had it at this point. And it just sits there. Well, Elbert gets out of jail, and he says, hey, I'm wanting to redeem that property, yada, yada. I said, yeah, we did the barment, but we'll see. And then the city went in and looked at it and said it's structurally unsafe or on whatever. And I guess if you look at the pictures, it's bowing on the spine of the roof. It looks like the house is sagging in the middle. And I was like, is it really that bad? So I went there and looked and took pictures, and it looked like the trusses had been burned. And
2 or 3 times.
Yeah, and I was like, dang, is this house caught fire? And I looked through the attic. I was like, and my guy that was with me that day is like, yes, it's caught fire. This house was burnt before. I was like, okay, well, this room is sagging. The trusses are kind of sagging, and nobody stole the wire, but electrical box got pulled. And the ridge cap at the tip top of the roof was missing. And I'm quite sure the code enforcer told me he thought the fire department had ripped the ridge caps off to let the roof breathe or something. I don't know.
Right. The second fire was in the attic, too.
Yeah, that must have been it. So we ended up doing a quiet title, and the cities want me to tear it down. I'm like, does it really need to be torn down? Well, let me quiet this title first before I start tearing this house down or doing what y'all want me to do, build it back, whatever. Well, Elbert answers with a counterclaim saying that I had did a false barment and I owed him damages for the sale price of the house, which was like $80,000. And I told my attorney, I said, whoa, I've never been sued before. Look what he's saying. I mailed the check back. They just didn't accept it. And he was like, well, I don't know. Look into it. Is it worth that? Whatever. I said, I don't know, but this guy has a history. Well, when I went into the Pacer account and looked, the 96 fires, I think 3 other fires, but y'all couldn't pin one on him. It was only, I think, 3 that could be pinned to that group. I'm like, well, crap.
In the Middle District, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, well, crap, why it got burnt so many times? Probably why it's structurally unsound. And I said,
that and the fact that he calls himself repairing it between it. And, of course, if he knows what to do and he can do it for less, he's going to do, what it takes to get by. I'm not sure he actually knows what to do, to properly repair a residence, but he certainly didn't do it.
I've got a video. I video a lot of my stuff. Georgia's a whatever state where one party's president.
Single consent.
Yeah. And so I had spoke. I'm scared at this point because one, the city's going to end up getting me to tear it down. I got a lot. It's not in the best spot in town. It's not in the worst. It's kind of whatever.
Yeah.
And at this point, I done bought the tax sale, been paying taxes on it. And it's just whatever. And this guy's wanting to sue me for lost rent and the value of the house. Like, nothing's wrong with it. Like, it's ready to sell. Like, he could have sold it for $80,000. Like, he could have been renting it from jail, yada, yada, yada.
He ain't never actually rented it to nobody.
Yeah.
The whole thing is he's had it for fraud.
Exactly. So when I dug in and I went to the city of Cairo, I said, hey, when's the last time power and water was operating here? And they come back
2006.
Well, she said the latest we can go back is 2013, and we see a garbage. They got garbage pickup there. I said, no power and water. She said, no. When the video, Elbert tells me when he went into jail, it was being rented. That's him trying to tell me, hey, it was rented. I don't know what you did to it. Well, I haven't done anything to the house. It hadn't gotten no better or worse. I cut the grass, and the city made me board up the windows. And that was 2 years after I bought a tax sale. So I was just doing that to dodge a ticket that they would put as a lien on the property.
Sure.
Well, I told Elbert I cut it once a year in September. If the city cuts it, they put a $150 bill. If I don't pay it, they just put it to the property. And I said, so I cut it once a year. But then I saw the $220-something thousand DOJ lien on there. And as I got to know Elbert more and kind of read into the case, I said, wow, he knows he can never get any value out of that property again because of the extent of the lien is so much.
Right.
And the house isn't worth much, even if it would have been fixed up. But it's structurally sagging. If they deem it structurally unsound, it's because they burn it. They burn it so many times, eventually maybe it gives out and it's vacant and whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm telling my attorney, he's like, well, we're trying to prove the barment was valid. I said, look, I get what you're saying, but we need to also attack that it's void his claim to the damages because the house is structurally unsound and needs to be demoed because it got burned so many times and never got fixed up. And the attorney I hired, he don't really know the case much, and I'm learning more as I go, but I says, I bet I know somebody who really knows about, how this operation went. It's probably the attorneys that had to try it. And so that's why I wanted to reach out to y'all.
So let me ask you a couple questions. Who is the attorney that you hired on your department?
The one that did the barment was a guy named David Basil. He's out of Carrollton, Georgia. He doesn't do a lot of litigation.
Is that Bazzle or Bassel or what?
It's Basil.
Okay, like basil, the herb.
Yeah, the herb, yeah.
Okay, and about when was it that you would say that you had this conversation that you recorded with Elbert, where he was trying to tell you that he had it rented when
this was early 2022, and this was, I'm just going to be honest, I was talking to my attorney. I said, hey, because I asked him, I says, do people sue for damages in a quiet title case? He's like, yeah. But when I Google, it's a case of equity. And I just told my attorney I'm using now, I said, hey, if it proves that the barment wasn't valid, then the house was technically never mine, and I'm just a lien holder. If it was valid, then he has no thing. I said, does that go back to the legal logic of a case of equity? And he didn't really respond. And he said, were you ever in possession? I said, no, I hadn't rented or done nothing. I just cut the grass and put the boards when the city told me to. And I've got pictures of all that. And he was like, oh, okay. And so anyway, I was telling my attorney, I said, hey, look, the house the property isn't worth much. I got a little over 10 grand in it now with legal fees from disputing the city from not putting a fine on it. That was a whole separate deal. I said, why don't I if he wants it that bad, I'll sell it back to him and, whatever. I'll do a contract for deed. We'll go through the quiet title. It'll be clear and he can have it back. Because at this point, I got about a $5,000 to $7,000 lot. And then when I had to pay a company to demo the property,
sure.
I've already took a loss. And then I got this guy who's savvy as all get out, I'm finding, in the mortgage, hustle game that's trying to get me for $170,000. I'm like, this is a nightmare. And he's like, yeah, you might want to just count your losses. I says,
sure.
Don't you think we're going to win? He's like, well, you never know in court. I'm like, well, that's reassuring. This is crazy. So that's what sparked me to link up with Elbert and say, hey, I'll just sign the house back over to you and you can drop your suit. And I'll bring a contract that says you'll drop your suit. I'm not going to sign the contract for deed to the house without you dropping the suit. And then I sign the house over and he still sues me. So I meet up with him and I'm videotaping the whole thing because I know he might be dishonest about what we say. So I got a video of our whole conversation. I said, look, the city's not letting me do anything with it. They say, yada, yada, yada. He says, I'm not worried about the city. I said, Elbert, don't you want me to do the quiet title? We'll do a contract for deed like we said because that DOJ lien probably ain't coming off. And at this point, he's got an appeal filed where he's appealing the judge's ruling at the case that y'all had. And
he's appealing the ruling on the firearms part of his case, but not with respect to the arson part of his case, which is what brought about the lien.
Well, on video, he's saying, I'm not worried about that lien. And I'm saying it's a big lien.
Because he ain't never paid a bill he's ever had is why he ain't worried about the lien.
So he says, I'm not worried about the lien. I'll handle that. Well, he hands me a deed for me to sign it over, and it's to a Shamika Ferrell. I don't know this woman. We've never brought her up. And that is when I realized that when that deed got sent to the mail for me to sign and sign back, you can take a deed or notarize it. You can take a deed and whatever, or I could have filed the deed. And down here in South Georgia, in Grady County, there's an attorney down here that's really good friends with the Chief Justice at the time, Kevin Chasen. And I told my attorney this. I said, what if I'd have quit claimed it and Elbert would have took the stance that I quit claim my rights as the tax deed holder, deed it to him at best, me file it, and then him turn around, quit claim deed it to somebody else, and they do a quiet title, a barment and a quiet title. I said, I know that sounds ballsy and very illegal, at most, at least unethical. I says, but if you get the right attorney down here, the judges sign off on anything, and they'll sign off on a quiet title being valid against the world. And these DOJ and IRS, these big federal entities, they never dispute the Georgia Department of Revenue. They never dispute the tax deed barment. And I said, that's what they were probably banking on. Because if I'm him, why would I want it put back in my name when he knows the property's in bad shape, yada, yada, yada. Or maybe he had an investor that would give him 20 grand for it, go in and fix it up. And you say,
no, he's going to burn it again.
He could possibly burn it again. Yeah.
That's what he's going to do.
And so I'm telling my attorney now, I said, I think what I did by sending the check back and us going through the barment and we serving his Mildred Walker with a sheriff's service with the attorney's cell phone and email, and them refusing to call the attorney or refusing to accept my certified mail, I said, I think I kind of put a stump in their little plan, and he's pissed about it. And he's mad because I didn't just go along and play ball and just do and take the check and accept it, because I had never heard from him and never spoke with him at all at this point. I spoke to a black girl who's younger who wouldn't tell me her name. It just seems sketchy. That I've had people redeem, and I've never had anything like that happen. And so that was weird. So anyway, my attorney searched for him in a prison database, and I told him, I said, I think the dude's in prison. At the tax office, they said they thought he was in jail. So Elbert's arguing because my attorney couldn't find him in jail and didn't serve him personally at Jessup, I guess, where he was at the time, that it's invalid. Well, all that, he can have the property back, yada, yada, yada. But he's got to prove whatever. But now I'm starting to see, when he gave me the deed with the Shamika Ferrell on it, I'm starting to see that they never intended it for it to ultimately go back in his name anyway. And they didn't want it in his name because he's got to deal with the lien. And he can't sell it. He can't get a loan out on it. I guess you're right. They could have put insurance on it. And
like in Shamika's name.
Yeah.
That's how he kind of did it before. So he had that family member, Shirley Burke, who he kept putting quote unquote in the property and insuring her interest in it and its content. And Shamika is a name that we heard before. Now, right this second, I can't tell you
exactly
how she plugged in to the details of it, but it is not a new name to me. It's one he's used before. So it sounds to me like, and tell me if I'm wrong, but you are not a resident of Georgia.
No, I live in the county beside Grady County.
Okay.
Decatur County is what it's called. Yeah. So two things when I reached out to you. One, I'm not wanting him to get over again, because I read the case where he, on Bonvilla, because I'm digging on every Bonvilla thing I can find it on the Pacer. My God, it's a lot of documents on that case. But
civil receivership that it was in before that and all that.
Well, I'm looking at it and I see where one time I said, this guy's got some gall. Does he have the gall to do what I'm thinking he would do? Well, then I seen where he took out a mortgage, either on him or another person's name. They burn it down. It was a $45,000 sale price, which I think Elbert got the proceeds, or somebody else got the proceeds, but it circled back to him on their scheme thing. So it burnt down. They got full loss on the house. And so the insurance company sent a $45,000 check for the price of the house to Elbert. But I've done roofs for people who had a mortgage. The mortgage company and the homeowner kind of disperse you the check when you do the work. They have to be in on the whole claim and the payout to the contractor. Well, I seen where Elbert and him had got a stamp with the mortgage company's signature and stamped the check, and actually got a lawyer out of court deal to kind of go along with it. And I'm like, wow, what the heck? So I seen that, and I seen where Elbert had gotten the $45,000 without the mortgage company even knowing. And then the mortgage company was like, hey, we reached out to the insurance company and said, hey, we never got a check for that. We never saw where y'all sent a check. And they're like, yeah, we thought we did. And they sent out another one to the mortgage company. So now the insurance company's out of $90,000 instead of $45,000 like they should have been out of. And so the mortgage company says, Elbert, okay, we're going to put that $45,000 towards the mortgage, but you still have $17,000 or something in fees and late fees and interest that's owed to us. So we just can't release the mortgage to you. And Elbert says, I dare you, how dare you not do that? I'm going to sue you guys in court. And I'm like, I think I read that right. And so not only did he screw over the insurance company, not tell the mortgage company that he signed their name, get the money, get the benefit of just the cash payout.
Get the lawyer in the middle disbarred. Don't leave that part out.
Yeah, and then had the gall to sue the mortgage company who he had already kind of screwed over.
Oh, yeah. So there's no limit to the lies he'll tell, and the offense is the best defense type, suits he'll file. There's no limit. No limit to his lies, no limit to his creativity, and he doesn't stop.
Yeah, and I'm starting to see now, I'm like, dude, if I'd have just got convicted on something like that, I think I would chill out. But I was just like, because I kept asking him, I says, how would you get any value from a property with a $220,000 lien on it? He's like, don't worry about that. I ain't worried about all that. I got that figured out. We going to court on that. I was like, wow, this guy's he's got it all figured out.
Yeah.
And he's so confident and assured in himself. I'm like, what am I missing? Like,
he's a born con man.
Yeah, he's good. And so two things when I called, I don't want to lose the case. If there's any way we could subpoena somebody like you who knows about this property and,
Right. So here's the best thing to do. I can't be the witness, but the assistant chief of police at the Pelham Police Department, Rod Williams, was the state fire marshal's investigator on the last Bonneville fire, and participated heavily in our, trial prep and investigation and testified at the trial and things like this. So he is the, if you will, last man standing, who knows a lot about this. I mean, the ATF agent has retired. The lead investigator for the state at the fire marshal's office has also retired. And then the chief of the Moultrie Fire Department was also very knowledgeable, because I'm sure, as you read, there was a lot that went on in Moultrie. He passed away. So as far as a fact witness on what has gone on Bonneville, Rod Williams is your man.
Okay.
And since you're in, Decatur County, that's not too far to go if he needed to get together.
The attorney that did the quiet title, he specifically only does quiet titles and tax debarments. He doesn't do litigation either. He actually lives up in Marietta, I think, and a couple Georgia Lottery and some other organization or something was on a lien in Fulton. So he actually filed it in Fulton because he thought it would be done in 6 months. He didn't know Elbert would do an answer. I didn't think he would either. So it's actually in Fulton, but you can do it via Zoom.
Yeah.
And so I'm either going to drive up there or do it via Zoom. And I got an Atlanta attorney who can, if we had to do in person, they wouldn't have to drive. And so anyway, so Rod Williams and Pelham. Okay.
Yeah, he's the assistant chief at the Pelham PD.
Okay.
And I don't mind calling him after we get off the phone just to let him know that we've spoken and, that I gave him your name and things like that.
Okay. And then two, I didn't want him, Elbert, if he was successful in getting the property back in his name, I wanted to tip you guys off if something sketchy happened or something was probably going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Or if something was in the works, because I know sometimes, or he might go through a method of removing y'all as the lien holder and do it in a shiesty way, like with the Shamika Ferrell Avenue, which is what
I'm going to also go upstairs and talk to folks in our civil department who handle the collection of restitution, kind of clue them in about what we've seen him do so far. And if it's okay with you, I may also call Mr. Basil and just kind of, put my name on his radar as well.
Well, he's not the acting attorney right now on the litigation. That's another guy. But Basil had done the barment. I had a conversation with him. He was like busy at the time or something like that. And I was like, okay. And I asked him how much it would be to do a quiet title, and his fee was kind of high. I was like, okay. And the other guy, Mariette, was a lot cheaper. And at this point, I bled out so much money on something that I'm not going to get a return on. I'm trying to be as chinksy as I can at that point.
I understand.
But that guy, I guess he's not the guy I got now is willing to do litigation, actually go to court. But yeah, I just didn't want this scheme to prevail. And then somebody like that, I've gotten to really dig into him. I'm like, I can't let this guy win. Even if he gets the property back, they might try to do some kind of...
Oh, yeah, he'll try to attach everything you've got before he lets a dollar of his go. So, and the reason why he tells you he's not worried about the city is in Mildred's name, he actually recovered in a case against the city of Cairo where they tore down what he, purported to be a record store that was very near where the Grady County Sheriff's Office is located. And that happened sometime shortly after he got convicted, but before his case went on its first appeal to the 11th Circuit. And he was represented, or she was, in that case, by an attorney out of Albany whose name is Janita Lane. And they took the proceeds of the lawsuit from the city of Cairo, gave them basically back to Miss Lane to represent Elbert on appeal at the 11th Circuit. That's basically how he funded his defense, is by getting the county or city to pay him out for having torn down his stupid little non-existent record store. I mean, when was the last time anybody bought a record anyway?
Yeah, I'll tell you, this gets deeper, and I know, I'm guessing are you from South Georgia?
No, but I lived in Albany for over 20 years, prosecuting case.
Well, Albany's a different beast in itself that I'm not aware of, but like in Cairo, for example, there's an attorney down there named Tom Lehman, and he's kind of like the kingpin of attorneys in Cairo. He's like the
I think he was the city attorney that did the payout.
Yeah, he was the one, and Judge Chasen's no longer a judge, and this is rumor. I don't want to speak against his character if it's untrue, but another attorney in Bainbridge had got him basically resigned from your seat, or he falsified a thing. Him and Tom practiced their whole life until Judge Chasen became a judge. And I always suspected that Elbert was using Tom Lehman, but not out, like publicly, this is my attorney, kind of in the back channels.
In other words, Elbert signing his own name to stuff you thought Tom wrote.
Tom was doing, and Tom's the city attorney. And I felt that Elbert and Tom had an agreement where Tom would allow Elbert to get away with stuff, or they were working to get this scheme going to use my position, basically take my position and leverage it for whatever they had in store to get the liens cleared out, yada, yada. And I kept my attorney, I got the quiet title attorney. I said, hey, we need to motion for discovery. If he don't, motion to compel. I don't know if federal prison, I always thought they took the envelopes and would make copies of whatever was sent in and out. Or they would at least have a call log of incoming and outgoing calls. I said, if we can get that evidence, I guarantee you, one, we'll find out who the mystery lady was that called me. Two, we'll find out if there's letters or anything that's basically pointing out the play they were trying to make. I said, I just know my gut tells me there's something there. Well, these attorneys, even the one I just used, I said, look, and that's Judge Emily Richardson's the judge in Fulton County. I said, look, she just postponed trial in December or in November on the calendar call just because my attorney botched ever sending out notice for discovery to Elbert, even though we had a 3-month window. I says, this is weird that these attorneys, I says, come on, we've got to do this. Well, I paid the retainer. And he says, no, I don't think it's necessary. I said, I think it does. I said, I think it tells a lot. It can't hurt to know. It doesn't hurt to know, but it hurts not to know. I'd like to know because my gut tells me there was a lot of moving parts in that thing. And I think it even deals, and Tom Lehman couldn't represent Elbert, on paper to say, because Tom's the city attorney, and it would be a conflict of interest.
Right.
Because he's the city attorney saying the property is structurally unsound. So that was weird to me, and I just told my attorney, who recently says, we don't have time. We have a trial in late January this month. I says, yeah, but he says there's no chance she would reopen discovery. I said, I'm telling you, it doesn't make sense, but she postponed it just for me to do it because she realized how bad my attorney botched up the discovery. I think she felt sorry for me. I think she'll do it. And he would never do it. So I said, man, there is a fountain of gold right there. I know it. I know if I could get a hold of that stuff, there's a ton of stuff there. For anybody that would like to know what their scheme is.
Right.
But
now, another person that I'm just going to throw out there as a person you might speak with is an attorney in Albany. He represented the co-defendant Daryl Burks. That's Chris Cohilas. He works at Watkins Penn. And Mr. Burke got convicted. He's some kin to Elbert. But their whole defense was basically Elbert hoodwinked Daryl. And Daryl was hooked into the get that stamp to forge that check part, right?
Yeah.
There's no doubt that he was knowledgeable and complicit in what he did.
Yeah.
But, Chris had the opportunity to basically take and weaponize his defense of Elbert into showing not only has Elbert done the, things that the government says in their indictment, but also, these things towards my client. And it, if you will, helped his client in some ways. I mean, again, he was guilty of his participation in forging that check, and that's basically what the jury found. Now, I don't know that Chris would tell you that he thought he could represent you. He might say he had a conflict. I don't know that he's a witness per se that you could call, but he is certainly a knowledgeable person in this, who doesn't have any restrictions against how he could assist you like we might because of the pending lien and things like that, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah, and he would, you're saying y'all are knowledgeable. He is too, because he had to know what you guys had to know.
That's right.
Part of his defense. Yeah, that's what I was, I appreciate that. So I'll reach out to both of those guys, and I'll reach out to my attorney, because it just seems sketchy. I felt like people were wanting to stop me from getting the call records and the letters, and I thought, well, it's really not a big deal, is it? I mean, what people, Stanley, want that? Because I said on one hand, it would show that Elbert was aware of getting the sheriff's service. Because I'm sure Mildred had picked up the phone and called him in jail and said,
"Oh, no doubt." And hey, now I'm not saying that his awareness makes it lawful service.
Yeah. That's a debate for the judge, and
sure.
Technically, it almost doesn't. But there's the thing of reasonable search. Could he have found Elbert via a Google search where he was in jail at? And Basil.
And you can abode service under Georgia law, and if he's still claiming 412 as his abode, then maybe that's a valid basis. I don't know, because there was a period of time during which he was allegedly on home confinement. Even though the BOP's website might have still showed him at a facility because of COVID, like you said.
Well, it did. That's a weird thing. Because Cairo's a small town, somebody in the tax office says, "Ain't he in jail?" Like, it's small town enough to know Elbert Walker's in jail, but maybe when Basil did his trace, it didn't come up, or he Googled it and couldn't find him. But people around the way, and I actually I told my attorney, I said, "Look, I've got emails of me and my attorney, me telling Basil, hey, is 1,900 the correct or is 2,200 the correct amount? Hey, Basil, I'm hearing a rumor that he's in prison. Are you sure you didn't find him in your prison search?" And Basil saying, "No, I didn't find him, but I'll try again." I mean, it wasn't like I was trying to, I told my attorney, it's not like I wanted to find the real guy, to make sure that maybe Elbert was innocent. I mean, this is crazy looking back at this. But maybe Elbert didn't even know people were trying to redeem it and trying to screw around. And I wanted to make sure this poor Elbert guy, we actually got to him and say, "Hey, man, do you know that they sent a check or somebody called?" Not saying it was you. "Who are you? Are you the real guy? What's going on here?" So that was my motivation. Hey, I want to see, is this guy really, what the hell's going on? But, but yeah, thanks for those names, and I'll reach out, and, I'm glad I picked the right attorney out the three to call that knew about it.
Yep, you got the right number.
Yeah, well, just be on the lookout, and if you guys ever need to reach out to me to see, hey, we're getting a flag on this property.
205-0252 is your best number?
Yeah, the best one.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to make a note of that. I'm going to call Rod Williams and let him know what we've talked about, in general terms, so that if you need him. And I may also text Cohilas and just let him know that I, said he might be useful to you or your attorney. And whether he's willing or not is on him. But there you go.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right, bye.